If your child only tantrums for you, here's what to focus on. My name's Jodie Thornton, and it's really common for gentle parents to have kids who, when they're with everybody else, they just behave beautifully and there's no intense, overwhelming emotion. But then for their primary parent, they absolutely lose their cool. And I want to talk about a couple of things that are really important to focus on if this is what's happening for you. So the very first thing we want to focus on is we need you to have the skills to be able to help your child regulate. So what that doesn't mean is just you stay calm while they are overwhelmed. What that means is you know how to help them actually bring their nervous system back into regulation. So that involves using your body language, your tone of voice, and your word choice to help them come back into being able to talk about their feelings and move through them. This is really important for your child because we want them to spend less time in distress, but it's also really important for you because if you're the one that your child is tantruming for, that'll end up draining on you. It can be so exhausting, particularly if you end up getting a lot of tantrums. It can be really, really draining, especially if, let's say you have a partner, but your child either won't tantrum for your partner or your partner finds it really hard to hold space for big feelings. Then it can get really, really draining if you're the only one. And so by getting you the skills to help them regulate, the tantrums take less time before they're resolved and they are less intense. This is so critical for you not getting so drained that you end up being reactive in the rest of your parenting, or even like when the tantrums are happening, you might find yourself getting so drained that you end up reacting. And that's also really important for you to get to a place where when your child is overwhelmed, you feel calm on the inside, right? There's a difference between most people are talking about we need to stay calm for our children, which is helpful for our kids, no doubt that when they have a dysregulated parent on top of their own dysregulation, it's doubly hard for them. But the thing is that if you are calm on the outside but you're not calm on the inside, you're only going to be able to stay calm for so long. This is like pushing a beach ball underwater. Eventually it's going to pop up, right? And then the other reason why it's important that we can get to a place where you're calm on the inside is because it's very, very difficult for you to actually be attuned to your child. Very difficult for you to actually be having empathy for your child if you are not calm on the inside. There's a certain level of dysregulation that we can kind of push our feelings down and still have empathy and still be attuned. It may not be as skillful, it may not be as full as if you were completely calm. But ultimately, the only way for you to actually be really attuned to your child and be really having empathy for where they're at is for you to be calm on the inside. Now, that takes a couple of things. One is getting really good at those skills I just mentioned about helping your child to regulate. But it also means that you will need to deal with any of the baggage that you have around emotions that you would have picked up most likely in childhood, but maybe in adulthood. So sometimes when we're really good at the skills, but we find that your child is only tantruming for you, you might have some baggage that says, well, it's just never going to be enough. My child is always going to be upset with me and I just will not be able to do this, right? That is like a piece of baggage that we can process and unpack so that it doesn't come up when your child is tantruming. Now, ultimately, what we want to see is that over time, we want to see the tantrums becoming less frequent, less intense, and going for less time. Eventually, we want to get to a place where your child is able to express their feelings and handle them as they come up. And what that really means, if your child is only tantruming for you, is that we need to be working on their emotional awareness and their communication skills. Because when they're not with you and they're not tantruming, if they tantrum with you, the likelihood that they're only having big feelings when they're with you is very, very small. Most likely thing that's happening is that whenever your child has big feelings, when they're not with you because you're their safe space, they just push the feelings down. And then when they're with you, they let the feelings out, right? So what we need to be able to do in the longer term, we really want to get to a place where your child knows how to handle their feelings when you're not there. So the skills we would work on at home between you and your child is noticing when their feelings are coming up before they get overwhelmed, being able to communicate their feelings to anybody, so whether it's friends, other adults, extended family, being able to say what it is that's important to them, and then also on problem solving. So it's really common in our culture for people to not necessarily be able to solve a problem at the root cause that works for everybody. And even at a very young age, your children are able to figure out, like, how do we solve this problem? And I'll give this example because I love it. So this was very early on in me learning these skills. I had done it consistently, but not necessarily skillfully for quite a while. And my daughter, who at the time was 2.5, right? So very small. This particular day, I really just needed to do the dishes. You know, when it doesn't matter, but it really mattered to me that day, right? And my 2-year-old was banging something on the coffee table. Now, I can't remember what she was banging, but it was not a precious thing. And the coffee table was not at any risk of being ruined. It was an old coffee table. It needed to go to the tip. So the problem was not the item that she was banging. The problem was not the coffee table. The problem was I could not handle the banging noise, and I did not want to give up doing the dishes, which sounds ridiculous, but you all know what it's like when there's something that just has to be really important. It's really important to you, even though it's not important in the scheme of things, right? And so I said to Alyssa, sweetie, you need to stop banging, it's hurting my ears. Now, that's not necessarily the full script of what I'd say if we were doing a textbook example, but I'm telling you what actually happened in order to demonstrate it doesn't always need to be perfect, right? So I just said, you need to stop banging because it's hurting my ears. She said, no, mummy, I like to bang, you get headphones. Like, even now I want to drop my jaw, because it's just like the 2-year-old just solved the problem, right? Like the 2-year-old just came up with a solution that works for everybody. I was happy to have headphones on. I didn't need quiet, I needed peace. And so me listening to music was a perfect solution. She came up with it. She was able, at 2 years old, she was able to figure out a way that works for everybody. And so we're not expecting children to be able to solve things all the time, but we are accepting the fact that they are capable of solving problems. They are capable of speaking up for what's important to them. Now, of course, in that situation, if headphones wouldn't have worked for me, I would have kept looking for another solution. And of course, it would have been a different story if the coffee table was precious, or if the item she had shouldn't have been banged, or all of those things, right? But in this perfect example to show that kids can learn the independent skills. And so what we really want to be getting to that, because there's two things. One is that if we know that your child is more likely pushing the feelings down rather than expressing themselves, of course we want to help them to deal with that, because it's stressful to push your feelings down when you're not with your safe person, right? But the second reason we really want to focus on this is because if your child is pushing their feelings down all day and then they come home to you and let their feelings out, or let's say they're going out for an activity with your partner, they've gone for a few hours, they come home, they're letting all their feelings out, what we end up having is that, like, that you end up having to hold space when they get home, right? And so that's what we really want to have happen, is we really want to see that your child can independently identify their emotions, identify what their feelings are telling them about what they need, be able to speak assertively to other people, and to participate in problem solving. We're not expecting your child to be able to do this all of the time. We want to help them to build the skill and encourage them to use those skills independently. So, now, the other thing to mention is that we do really want to see this shift. So if you're the parent who's always holding space for your child's tantrums, that doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck in this place for a long time, unless there are specific circumstances that mean that your child is dysregulated for an extended period of time, we really want to see improvements to your child's tantrums at most every 2 weeks. We really want to see how quickly they can regulate when they get dysregulated, how much they can assert their feelings rather than wait until they get overwhelmed, right? Those things will improve at a much quicker pace than most people expect. So if you're not seeing that happen, if you're in a place where the tantrums are either, it's just random or it's just constant, I would really like to help you with that. So what we want to do is actually focus on building up your skills and your child's skills so that the trajectory of tantrums comes down over time. We eventually, as I say, we want to get to a place where they're able to assert themselves rather than tantrum. The younger your child is, and sometimes personalities of children, we're not necessarily aiming for 0 tantrums, but we're aiming for very few, and when they happen, they're much less intense and they're much shorter, right? So for some kids, when we make a few tweaks, the tantrums will disappear altogether. For other kids, it takes us a while to kind of really unpack it, but we definitely want to be looking at a lot fewer tantrums. We're not just saying that tantrums are just a feature of childhood, because they're really a feature of unprocessed emotions. So if we process the emotions, we don't need to have the tantrums, right? So I hope that's been really helpful. And if you'd like to talk to me about getting support with building your skills and building your child's independent emotional and communication skills, you can book a call at jodithornton.com/CALL. We can talk about what's working for you, what's not working for you, and how I could help.